Well, first, thanks for coming out and being part of this historic occasion, sharing the celebration with us. So, I'd like to tell you a story, a Juneteenth story, and I want to tell it from the point of view of a slave named Randell, who later became a free man, but who is enshrined in our history and very important in the history of the state of Virginia and of our life when it comes to records, because the government cannot function without records. So you ready to hear Randall's story?
Yes.
Great. So, I was born a slave in 1842 on Master Nathaniel Young's farm. So as a young man growing up, I worked out in the farm, in the fields, but also I helped Master Young with the keeping of the records here at the Isle of Wight courthouse. This was a very important task to the Youngs because his family had kept these records for generations. Because of the Young family, at that time, Isle of Wight had some of the oldest records in the state and the nation. They had actually existed since 1629, when the county was initially formed. So, why do I say they was part of the oldest? Well, during the 1700s, we had the Revolutionary War. And a lot of places like Nansemond County lost their records because they were burned by the British soldiers. Here in Isle of Wight, Master Young's cousin, Elizabeth Bennet Young, had saved our records. And the way she did it was, she took the records after those in Nansemond were burned. So in July of 1881, she took the records to a place called Grist Mill, and she buried them. She put a tree there so she would know exactly where they were, and the land would not look disturbed. And they stayed there safe for 2 years until the end of the war around September 1883. And they were resurrected and existed in the courthouse. So Master Young was very concerned when in 1861 the Civil War started. By 1862, things were taking a little different turn for the South. And Master Young was really, really worried because he remembered what had happened in Nansemond. Many of the counties and cities around here sent their records north to Richmond because Robert E. Lee had promised them that Union Army would never set foot in Richmond. Master Young wasn't so sure, so he decided to do something different. So on May 5th, 1862, Master Young said, "Come with me." And he had an old mule cart outside the courthouse. He had some old wooden crates and wooden cases. He says, "We're going to load the records into these cases, Randall. And tonight, I want you to take these records south and hide them." He gave me papers to help keep me secure, but it's just a piece of paper because they're bounty hunters. They're slave hunters throughout Virginia. But he said, "Randall, you have to keep these records safe." So that's what I did. That night, I went south, down into the Dismal Swamp. And if you're from Virginia, you can feel this heat now. You know, that's a miserable place to be. But I moved the records around through Greensville, through Southampton, through Brunswick. Yeah, it's a really good stew with Brunswick. I'm sure y'all know that. But I kept them on the move. But sometimes, for days, I just sat in that mule cart and moved those records. Finally, the war began to draw to an end in April of 1865. Think about that. That had been a little over 3 years almost. And so at the end of the war, they told me, "Randall, bring the records back. They're safe now." And I was able to bring back those 1629 records to be kept again here in the Isle of Wight courthouse. Those people that sent their records to Richmond were not so fortunate because Robert E. Lee was wrong. And on April 2nd and 3rd, as the Confederates were burning Richmond as they withdrew, the fire became out of control, burned up the buildings, and all of those records were lost. But thanks to me moving the records around and bringing them back, we still have our 1629 records. So, the reason I say this is a Juneteenth story is, records say, they gave Randell his freedom. But that's not true. Randell's freedom became with the Emancipation Proclamation with everyone else. But the Young family was really good to Randell and thanking him for what he had done. And their legacies were tied together because they had 4 generations of record keepers. So they gave Randell a plot of land so that he, his wife, and his 2 children could live on that land. He no longer had to work the Young farm because Isle of Wight allowed him to be a permanent assistant record keeper here at the Isle of Wight courthouse. Imagine that, to me, a former slave having a job here at the courthouse. The Young family also had an old abandoned store, and even though it was old, it was a pretty good building, and they created a 1-room schoolhouse for the Negro children there. And you would have seen me with that same mule cart taking the old Uncle Randell, taking those children back and forth to school. And I lived out my life until I died peacefully on that farm in 1904. That's my story. So now let me, Harry, tell you the rest of the story, right? As Paul Harvey would say, now the rest of the story. His legacy really doesn't end there. In 2015, the state of Virginia passed a resolution honoring Randell Booth for his role in the preservation of records here in Isle of Wight. And in a twist of fate, the Daughters of the Confederacy commissioned a giant painting commemorating Randell Booth's records. It looks like this. It was made by local artist Stephanie Pileski, wonderful person. And I had the pleasure of being there on the 12th of November in 2015 when this painting was unveiled on the second floor of the courthouse outside of the Randell Booth record room. So, because of his work, and certainly deservedly for what he did during those few years, his legacy and history is permanently enshrined here in Isle of Wight. And researchers and school teachers can go to that record room and look at records that still date back to 1629. That's the Randell Booth story.
All right.
That's probably the sum of my knowledge, but if you have some questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. Do you have any questions?
Where was that schoolhouse?
It's, I don't know. I know that the Lane Young families had a lot of area out toward Ren's Mill. Some people said that, that they knew where the schoolhouse was, but I don't personally know. I think it's out in the Ren's Mill area, but I'm not really sure where it is. But it is near here because the young family farm area is still around. So, yes.
What's the condition of the original documents, and do they still exist?
They still exist. There were paper documents. They're in good condition. People go there to use them for research all the time. I'll tell you, my family is from West Virginia. We moved to Virginia, and a lot of the family moved up towards Chatham, Martins, Danville area. As we tried to look through our records, they stopped in the right in the late 1700s. They stopped because they were destroyed and they don't have those. Here, the documents of, even the documents of slaves, born and died, records transfers, they're in good condition and they still exist. You can go there and look at them.
And they digitized a lot of them.
Yep, yes.
But they did.
Yep, they digitized.
Are they available online?
If you call the clerk's office today, I believe there's a fee that they charge for you to access them online, but you can go there anytime at the clerk's office and see.
And they'll help. And I heard that they're very good at helping you do research and to look at it. Yeah. And we got one of Randell Booth. You're saying his great
Great grandfather.
Randell Booth is his great grandfather. So we thank you for the service that Randall had, an amazing man. And people say, well, was he this big giant man? We actually have some pictures of Randall. He was kind of tall, skinny, a lot like this. Stephanie was very true to her representation of him. A normal man who did an amazing thing. Any other questions? Thanks a lot for sharing the celebration with us. Feel free to come in and look around at any time. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know where a copy of that picture can be acquired?
Yes. If you go up Main Street, at the Visitor Center, there's a lady there, Kathy Mountjoy. She can get you one.
Okay.
I want to make one comment. If y'all haven't been, the Schoolhouse Museum was open weekly, but it's here today, as well as part of Juneteenth celebrations. Right across the street from Main Street Baptist Church, there's a Schoolhouse Museum.
Yeah, this is very nice. So you can get that at the Commemorative Society or from Stephanie. Yes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Enjoy the